Fear is a funny thing. Part 3 by PestilencexFox. My breathing wasn't even, and I couldn't help but tremble. For the better part of a month, I had been following her, trying to figure out what she was, and what I could do to stop her. And before I made any headway on that endeavor, she had cornered me. She looked beautiful in the moonlight, her striking features only seeming to be supplemented by the darkness surrounding us. But I couldn't focus on that now. I was more concerned with escaping this encounter alive. She slowly circled around me, as if sizing me up, reminding me of a lioness preparing to go in for the kill. I pulled out my knife and shakily held it out at arm's length towards her. I had no idea if it would have any effect on her, but I knew I was not going to let her kill me without a fight. She raised an eyebrow in what could either be described as confusion or amusement. Maybe a hint of both. "Are you planning on hurting me, Thomas?" she asked in a soft feminine voice, for a moment making my resolve waver. But when she cracked a toothy grin at me, I knew I was right to protest myself. "You're going to need a bigger knife than that." Get the fuck back!" I stammered, trying my hardest to relay confidence, though we both knew whatever nerve I had was quickly evaporating by the second. "I swear to God, I will gut you like a goddamn trout if you try to lay a finger on me." "That's descriptive," Alina mused, still grinning, still circling me. She was starting to make me dizzy. I began to lower my knife, only to quickly realize my folly and raise it once more directly at her. "Come now, Tom. If I were going to hurt you, you'd already be dead. Lower the knife and let's talk, like civilized adults." I scoffed at her, though she had a point. Alina had known for who knows how long that I had been tailing her, and she easily baited me into this trap of hers. I clutched the knife a little tighter, but decided lowering it may be the best option. For the moment, she was not being aggressive, and I was woefully unprepared for any engagement that would end in me coming out on top. I kept the knife in my hand, but I lowered it to my side, eyes fixed on her. "What do you want from me?" "What do I want from you?" Alina looked as if I had spit at her in that moment, her face for the first time conveying anything negative. "I want to know why you are following me. You've been watching me for about a month now, skulking like some sort of crazed fanatic. What exactly is your deal?" That shocked me. What is my deal? My deal is that you are not who you say you are. You go about the campus like you're one of us, but I know you're not. You can't hide from me, Alina. I saw you that night after our calculus class, the real you, and I'm going to figure out exactly what you are. I don't know where the momentary confidence came from, but just as quickly as I mustered it, it had escaped me. And once again, I just felt terror. I had stupidly laid all my cards out on the table and had received nothing in terms of insight for it. Alina was quiet after that. At first, she looked confused, and after that, concerned. Finally, she must have decided on pity, because I knew that look all too well. "Thomas, I don't know what you think you saw, but... Don't lie to me! I saw you! Fangs and gray, rotten skin. You can hide all you want, but I saw you! I insisted, and as much as it pains me to say it, my vision started to blur. This was too much. I thought I would be stronger than this, but I was way in over my head. I know you're behind all of the deaths and disappearances around campus. I don't know why you let me go that night, but I saw you, and I haven't been able to think of anything else since. Elena was quiet after that, no longer grinning and no longer circling around me. At the beginning of our encounter, she looked as though she was enjoying taunting me. Like this was some game that she was taking pleasure in. But now, if I didn't know better, if it was anyone else other than her, I would swear she regretted her decision to confront me. Thomas, I won't lie to you. There is something terrible happening here, and I am less than human. With that said, you are mistaken. I'm not behind all the deaths that have happened here. She went to reach out towards me, and I recoiled, bringing the knife back up to defend myself. Elena backed off and dropped her arms down to her sides. I can only imagine what you saw that night. To be honest, I'm not sure as to how you saw anything. There is something on this campus that has been feeding on your classmates, and I've been hunting it for a few years now. Until recently, I had operated at a slow pace, never drawing much attention to its feeding. But something over the past 2 years has expedited the rate of the killings. When you reached out to me, I was trying to commune with the creature that has nested on your campus. What you saw was its true form, not mine. Elena had then taken a few steps back, and once again held her hand out to me. I will not hurt you, Thomas. If you take my hand, I can show you the truth. Bullshit! Why should I trust you? I looked over at Elena's face warily, trying to find any hint of deception, though everything I saw conveyed her being honest with me. Thomas, you have suffered enough in your life already. Between what happened to your mother and the state of your life since, I do not wish to cause you further harm. When I saw you attending this campus, I was happy to see you leave your past behind. My blood ran cold at her mention of my mother. How could she possibly know that? Outside my uncle, I had never spoken about the events of that night to anyone. How could you possibly know that? Because, Thomas. Elena dropped her hand to her side and looked at me with pity. She sighed and rolled her shoulders. And from behind her, large black feathered wings unfurled themselves, stretching out for several feet in either direction. Because I am the Reaper that took your parents to the next life. I looked at her incredulously, no longer sure of what to think of her or what she had proclaimed. But before I had a chance to make up my mind, we both heard an unmistakable sound. One that caused me to give credence to her and her reason for being here. Elena's wings recoiled in on themselves and disappeared entirely, and we both turned to look towards a sewer drain not too far from where we were standing. From the sewer drain, we both had heard the unmistakable scream of a young woman, and as we both moved cautiously closer to the drain, we heard something else. God, no! Please help me! followed by another deafening scream, and then silence. Part 2. Despite her insistence that I stay above ground, I followed Alina into the sewers. I had spent the better part of a month trying to figure out what was going on with the deaths at my school, and I was not going to turn back now. I still don't know what to think of Alina, but the fact that I was with her when this latest person was crying for help, and she genuinely seemed like she wanted, or maybe needed to help them. Why are you doing this? What even is a Reaper? I asked as we made our way through the sewage and filth. The pipe we traveled down was not much bigger than I was, which made traversing the area quite difficult. Think of me as a ferryman. When people die, those like me assist their souls in heading to the afterlife. Alina said, never bothering to look back at me as she explained. She seemed rather annoyed that I followed her, but time was of the essence. At least, that was the impression that I had. If you operate around the circumstances of death, why are you hunting whatever is causing these murders? Wouldn't it be beneficial to you to have people die? It sounded weird and callous coming out of my mouth, but I had to know what was going on, even if I only knew for a short period of time before I met my own untimely demise. Normally we don't intervene when it comes to these matters. The natural world and the supernatural have a tendency of coexisting simultaneously without much need of interference. Alina stopped for a moment when we came to a fork in the pipes, trying to deduce which path to take. After a moment, she decided on the path to our left and continued her expedition. This is different, though. It requires investigation. Why is that? What's special about this? I didn't really know if I wanted the answer, but I was unable to not ask the question. Whatever is killing the students here, it's not harvesting entrails or draining their blood, but rather, it's feasting on its victims' souls. Alina sounded disgusted at this. When someone dies of natural or unnatural causes, usually we take their souls to the next plane of existence. But when there is no soul remaining to ferry, well, we take notice of this. It upsets the natural order of things. This was becoming a little too much for me to comprehend. I wanted to continue questioning her, but I didn't even know what to ask next, so I elected to just follow her in silence. It was at this point I started to take a good look around for the first time. There was no natural light down here, just the flashlight from my cell phone that Alina had commandeered, and in the bluish light it gave off, I started to make out something on the walls. I stopped following Alina for a moment so that I could get a better look at it. At first I believed it to be a gray moss or fungus of some sort, but the closer I looked, the more I realized it wasn't a plant like moss, but rather more like the skin I had seen the first time I had touched Alina. It seemed sticky to touch and smelled of rot, but before I could investigate further, Alina was pulling me to keep up with her. If you're going to insist on following me, you need to do so. Becoming lost and being a burden does not make this any easier for me. I felt sheepish at her scolding, but I knew she was correct. I put my hands to my sides and followed her in tow. After a while, we started to hear faint sounds not too far in the distance. At first, I didn't notice anything, but the further we traveled, the quieter the pipes were, and the more pronounced it became. I was about to ask Alina about it, and she must have sensed my unease because she turned to me, momentarily holding her finger up to her lips in a shushing motion. I nodded, and we both slowly crept forward, looking for the source of the noise. It was only a few moments later that the noise hastened, and I could finally register what it was I was hearing. Chewing. It sounded like something was chewing on a large piece of meat, and my stomach dropped at the realization. Alina turned to me and leaned in towards my ear, close enough where I could feel her breath on my skin as she whispered to me, "I need you to be very quiet. Whatever is down here is just around this next corner. You'd be better off staying here until I return." I made eye contact with her and nodded, being sure to keep as still as I possibly could. I knew I would only get in the way of whatever was about to happen, regardless of how much I didn't like it. Alina nodded back to me and began to creep around the corner, and after a moment, she was gone. Seconds passed, which felt like an eternity, and it was only then that I realized how foolish I was to follow her this deep underground, unprepared and woefully unaware of what she was up against. Finally, I heard the monster scream, followed by Alina speaking in a language I had never heard before, one that didn't sound human in origin. I could hear thrashing about and slamming of bodies into walls, more screams, and I felt the water at my feet ripple with the motion just out of sight from where I stood. I wanted terribly to go and look, help in any way I could, but I steeled myself to stay where I was instructed to. Finally, I heard the monster bellow again, and then I heard a giant slam of dead weight onto the ground. I couldn't stand waiting anymore and was determined to figure out what was going on. I rushed around the corner and saw Alina squatting in front of the beast. Whatever it was, it looked just as it had the first night I had touched Alina. Sickly gray, rotten skin, giant fangs, but it was considerably larger, and I expected it to be at least 7 feet tall. The creature was laying in a pool of what I could only guess was its own blood, twitching and spasming at random times, but seemingly incapacitated. Alina also looked rather rough as she turned to face me. She had a sizable gash on her left arm that was spilling a considerable amount of blood. She also had a large gash above her eyes, but she was smiling at me, making me think we were going to be okay. Things would go back to normal soon enough. "You were supposed to wait, you know," Alina said through a tired smirk. I wanted to tell her then, warn her to move, but I was frozen as my eyes locked with the monsters. Alina must have sensed something was off in that moment because she turned again to face the monster, but it was too late. Alina's blood erupted from her body as the creature's head shot up and latched around her shoulder, giant fangs piercing her flesh and making her go limp. In that moment, I knew I was in trouble. I knew that Alina would no longer be able to fend that creature off, as it knocked her to the ground and mounted her, fangs still locked in her torso. I knew that it was my fault she was caught off guard. The creature looked up and locked eyes with me once more, and in them, I could see only hunger. I knew I needed to run, and that's exactly what I did. Hey guys, 4ShotBoss is here. I want to thank you guys for checking out this video. I really enjoyed doing this one, and I hope you guys do as well. It seems like you guys are really eating the story up after the past couple days. Yeah, after the past couple days it's been uploaded, so there are going to be 2 more parts. I thought it was only 1 more after this, but there's 1 more part 6 coming out after some time. It might already be up by the time this video is out though, so I hope you guys enjoy the story, and I just want to thank you guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It would really be appreciated by me. Anyway guys, have a good one and stay creepin'.